Okay, so this is a luck and bleed build. Luck, bleed, poison. The stats are going to be shown here. And I'm not really that confident in how the build performs overall, but I wanted to show what luck, bleed, and poison can do. So I'm using the frayed blade as my main for a few of these fights. You can swap them out based on some of the weapons I'm going to show here. The rings are all visible there. Armor is purely for fashion because it barely does anything anyway. There's a whole lot of stuff that you can use. I'll show the stats towards the end, but you can see it here. I have 60 dex, 18 strength, just so I have the bare minimums to wield the stuff that I need. 25 endurance, just so I can swing around a bit. I have the prisoner's chain, so I get a +5 in vigor, attunement, and vitality, so I can wear some heavier stuff, have a few more weapons. You'll notice a few of my weapons are at +9 because I don't have enough slabs yet. This is a new game plus cycle, and I ran out of slabs. So it's just a bunch of hodgepodge videos. I swapped out my armor for a few of the other fights. Mainly for poise and flat absorption. I think I kind of fucked it up, so I swap around the armor quite a bit here. I'm not going to show the transitions in between. Basically, the build revolves around getting poison a proc as quickly as you can, just to pressure them, and bleed rather, to finish off turtles. It's far from optimal. I have to be honest. It's not exactly a never can lose build. You have to be careful with the way that you use the dagger, because anyone with decent parrying skills will know that after a few swipes you can be reaction parried. So it's not exactly how you want to go by spamming R1. For a few of the fights I have Henri's straight sword because it is a luck build and I get decent scaling off of it. This guy thought he could run away, but you know, with the poison, it's really not a viable option unless you already have poison moss equipped or slotted in, and therein lies the biggest drawback to using a build like this. Any decent PvPer will have purple or red moss clumps, and you're pretty much fucked if they use it because it takes away a bulk of the gameplay that you plan to use. Not exactly how you want to go in terms of combat is R1 spamming and just making it very obvious you're trying to proc a few debuffs on them. That's why I usually have an offensive weapon that I'm pretty comfortable with, like the Henri's straight sword or any of the katanas. Since I have 60 dex, I can pretty much use anything sharp infused that scales well with dexterity. So the katanas would always come to mind. I can also use the Lothric sword, Lothric straight sword. I have other options like a rapier. You know, you have a whole bunch of stuff at your disposal when you have 60 dex. This guy, I think this build works best against slower, heavier weapons, mainly because you don't want to engage in a trade, but rather quick step behind them. Though the weapon art on almost all the daggers is quick step, and the ones I use here use quick step as their weapon art. I have the Blessed Lothric Knight Shield just so I have some passive regen. This guy was actually a bit of a dick. He was decent, I'd say. He's using lapse armor and it has decent poise, so I really can't tank through it. And since it was he's a miracle build, if he poise casts any miracles, I don't want to engage in a trade because I'm always going to lose that trade, regardless of what weapon I'm using. So he's using the Mail Breaker here. I think I lost this fight. I can't really remember. Pretty sure I did. I got him back later on though. He was playing Turtle and poise casting a lot of the high damage miracles. So I'm guessing he had maybe 60 faith and both miracle rings equipped, hoping that I would be stupid enough to try to R1 spam him to death whenever he'd poise cast. So I did try to get a parry off of him. I fucked it up. I'm an awful parrying guy. This guy's been watching too much Chase the Bro, honestly. Chase the Bro has a really awesome faith build, and this guy obviously took a lot of pages out of that book. Yeah, with all the phantom range on the Mail Breaker, I was pretty fucked. Is it a Mail Breaker or is it an S-Talk? I can't really tell. But yeah, I got him back in the next fight here. This is him again. I sort of got him back, I guess. He had a case disequipped on his offhand because he probably figured I was going to try to to R1 spam him. So I just chip away at him and try to proc a few debuffs. Because the gameplay on a bleed poison build relies heavily on pressuring them with poison, and then picking up all the trash after they make all their fucking mistakes. Because they tend to panic, especially if they didn't have any moss slotted in. They're gonna start panic rolling. They're gonna start trying to finish you off faster than the poison can get to them. And that's why I trade into the poison or the bleed bandit knife, so that way I put even more pressure on them, because they're gonna have it makes their rolls more predictable, because you can roll through the bleed damage, but if you're not very decent at it, it still gets you, and it's a big chunk because bleed does a fixed percentage of your HP, your total HP. So that's what I capitalized on with this guy, and with a lot of the opponents I had here. But anyway, pros and cons of a bleed luck build or a bleed luck poison build. First off, the pros would be you have the option to really deal some heavy damage in terms of both the poison proc and then the eventual bleed proc which follows. It's an anti-turtle build, so anyone who hides behind a shield or any sword and board builds, they're pretty fucked if they are heavily reliant on that. The reason why I started using this build a lot was because when that video with Great Magic Shield and the Black Knight Shield +5 came out, a lot of people started using it, and with 100 stability and 100% physical reduction, it's pretty hard to get through a defense like that. So I needed a means to let them know that, hey, shit, you can't be using you can't be hiding behind that thing forever. I'm gonna get to you eventually. So that's basically what I went after. I have to admit, the cons sometimes outweigh the pros. Cons would be low overall damage. This guy, I think I poisoned him to death. Anyway, low physical damage, and the fact that mosses can pretty much negate the build, which is why I have a third weapon slotted in case that happens, so I can go pure melee. You have to be pretty decent with a weapon, so pick a weapon that you're comfortable with. I usually go for straight swords or katanas because they seem to do a lot better, and if you're good at spacing, you can punish them with an R1 and get some decent damage in. This guy was a bit of an R1 spammer, and katanas are fairly easy to parry, although I didn't get a parry off of him. It's easy to trade with somebody who's using almost no poise, so you can just chip away at his health like that. And with the poison proccing that way, I just decided to play defensively, so there. The stats were at the beginning of the video, so I'm going to end the commentary here. There's not much else to say. Enjoy watching. I lose a few times because I'm not all that good, but yeah, there. Happy holidays, guys. Cheers.